Many people get in touch with the questioning about if I've worked some magic, if I've have what I believe to be some communication with inner beings, how can I tell that it's true? Where is the verification? If I've done a piece of magic to bring about a particular result, how can I tell that it's authentic, that it's going to come about on the earth plane? How can I trust it? After all, any issue about which we feel very strongly, we are obviously biased. And so therefore we cannot say, oh, it's going to work just because I think it should, or I believe it is. It's an important matter because on it hinges a great deal, because one will make decisions or live one's life according to these magical acts that one has done. So it's very important that we know something to be clear, that it's true, that we're not fooling ourselves. But how do we do this? Well, in the old days, they used the process of what are sometimes called omens, or what would be called signs following. These were verifications coming from the Latin word veritas, meaning truth. These were verifications that what had been communicated was in fact truth. This also applies to inner teachings or promptings one may have received in meditation. After all, we are biased. We're biased according to our emotional and mental construction or our life experience. And like it or not, in the courts of karma, there is no justification for saying, I did it because I thought I was told to do it. That does not exempt us from the fruit of what we have done. So we have to know. Dion Fortune, a famous esotericist, in one of her writings says, I will not shift, I will not act until I receive signs following. Fair enough. What are signs followings? Well, there's several names. Some people call them omens. I rather like the translation from the Tibetan, which is auspicious coincidence. What this means is that something that is linked to the matter comes into being, happens, without us cultivating it, without us forcing it. It's best to use an example. So let us say I do a letter of petition, I do an act of magic towards the Archangel Michael, asking for the help of the Archangel in one of the matters that he rules over. This isn't the time or place to go into all of his rulerships, but it could be any being. Obviously, one gets in touch with the being who is associated with the problem or the matter. So let's say, as an example, in this case, I called on Archangel Michael. So I would have done his magic. In all likelihood, I would have done it upon a Sunday, because Sunday is the day sacred to Archangel Michael. And I would have made the act of magic, the petition to him. Then, having done it, I am now awaiting upon an omen of consent, a verification, an auspicious coincidence. That omen, in the case of Archangel Michael, it varies from one to another. In the case of Archangel Michael, the omen has to come within 7 days of the act of magic, or of the letter of petition, if that's the method one's been using. And the omen must be one of the ones that the tradition has already given us of his rulerships. Actually, they're rather generous in the range. So Archangel Michael rules all felines, all cats, from big cats to small cats. So somebody gives you a card or an ornament which shows a lion on it. That, within the set period, is an authentic omen. But of course it's not an omen if you go out and buy something with a lion on it. And not as many people do, and I've seen them fool themselves. This is why I'm doing this, because people lead themselves to so much sorrow based upon falsehood that they generate. For example, I remember one case where oranges are also sacred to Archangel Michael. So a gift of oranges in that time frame is a valid sign. But not, as in one case, I know a person who, when her partner said he was going to the shops, do they need anything? And she said, I will buy some oranges. Well, that doesn't count. I say this because when it comes to things that are very close to our hearts, we become crooks. We become little criminals because we want something to happen. And this is why, the greater mages, they place their trust in the higher powers for the result. In other words, one wants to know the answer, one wants to know whether it's due to happen, so that one will act accordingly. But one will not act until it's been verified by an action. So within 7 days there will be sunflowers, there will be gift of oranges out of the blue, there will be ornaments with lions on. There are whole lists of them, and there are different omens for all the different celestial beings, and for most spirits too. And that's why the study of it is so important, that one knows beforehand when to do it, what the signs are when they come. Because once it's happened, once you've received valid omens and things, you can then relax, because you know it's now going to happen. If you do it and get no sign within the appropriate time period, that's not a bad thing. It doesn't automatically mean, oh, that's it for all time. It simply means not yet. After all, the higher powers have oversight. They can see what's unfolding and what needs to be in place for something to happen. As I say, the Tibetans call this auspicious coincidence. They are coincidences, but the point is they happen within the time that has been appointed from the time in which you acted the invocation. It's true, sometimes the omens are miraculous, but generally speaking, the powers that be don't work miracles unless they have no other choice. The ancient societies all worked on this principle. If you look at ancient Egypt and Greece, they all worked on the invocation of the great powers, recognizing their symbols, what resonated to them in the physical kingdoms of plants and animal and celestial. For example, yesterday night, I had recently been engaged in an invocation of one of the angelic beings. And last night unexpectedly there had been meteors, a shower of meteors, completely unexpected by me. I had no idea they were coming. And so that was an omen from a particular celestial spirit that my petition had been heard and was going to be granted. It's so important to really drum this into oneself. One needs to have a sense of truth. This is why people who are habitual liars never become very good mages, because the upper worlds won't work with somebody who cannot be truthful, not just to them, but truthful even with themselves. As I say, the Tibetans call this, in translation, auspicious coincidence. Yes, these omens are mainly coincidental. Occasionally they're miraculous, but as I say, they don't have to be. The miracle is only if they can't get any other way to get it to you. So yes, they are a coincidence, but they're auspicious, meaning blessed, auspices, because they've come within the required time. Carl Gustav Jung, who was strongly influenced by Gnosticism, which was an early form of magical Christianity, one could crudely put it, called this phenomenon of things happening to signify real activity from the inner levels of being. He called it synchronicity, which is a valid way of putting it. The important thing is, if you live your life by these things, you will live in accord with the powers that be, and therefore you will flourish. You will not bring harm to other people, and your own life will flourish. I have seen hundreds of people who have benefited from living life that way. They no longer reap bad karma because they work always in accord with the powers that be, with the powers of heaven. Study more on this and then follow the laws that surround it, and you will flourish.